Hey bestie, it's time for your next session of Real Talk Friend Therapy with your favorite big sister auntie queen, Daysha Veronica. What up, y'all? It's Daysha here. I hope you're doing well. I know it's been a hot minute. My life. I'm hoping that the craziness of my life will soon come to a calm. Words. Life has just been so challenging recently, and I think I'm still processing, and I will definitely kind of open up about what's been going on in my life later. But for right now, it's been a journey, and I'm navigating a lot of stuff, having a lot of feelings. I keep forgetting to look up what astrological movements are happening, because I've just felt very deep in my emotions, and I'm it's not even Cancer season yet. We're in Gemini season still. This feels like some Cancer energy that I have going on. But just a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, a lot of processing. There's so much. There's too much. But we just started June, so happy Pride for all of my LGBTQ family. I can't believe it's June. I can't believe we're halfway through the year. I can't believe that we still have an election coming by the end of this year. This year is so short and so long at the same time. There's too much. But to stay on the positive, we are here. We are enjoying summer, at least here in the US. And I can't tell you what a love-hate relationship I have with summer. I love that the days are longer. I feel like people are in chiller moods because of the summer. And then I'm also a summer baby. Shout out to all my fellow Leos and August babies out there. But I swear, just because I live in the desert now, I lose all sense of style in the summer, because it is when you live in LA proper, it's hot, but it's a cute hot, you can still be cute with it being hot. With the desert, oh my God, I couldn't give a shit about wearing clothing. The idea of putting an outfit together, let alone just going outside, my brain just can't compute. And it's funny because my boyfriend's mom, she was staying with us for she stayed with us for 2 months. And she just left oh my gosh, I can't even say she just left. She left a month ago, which is nuts. And I miss her so much. But I'm also really glad that she got out of here when she did, because now we're getting into the 90-degree, 100-degree territory. And your girl is walking around in her underwear. And I also will say that I am so glad, literally the best investment we ever made with our house is that we got the house painted with this eco paint. And the eco paint helps to keep the house's temperature cooler overall. And Lord, I cannot explain the science behind how it does what it does. All I can do is truly testify to the fact that it has made such a huge difference in how hot the house gets during the summer. Before we got it, I just remember that first summer being in the house, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't think. I couldn't, even being naked, I just could not function. And I was so cranky and I was annoyed all the time. It was awful. And then the first summer we had it, which was last summer, I kid you not, I would be covered up in the house with a blanket, on the couch. And then I'd go get the mail and be holy fuck, it is gross out here. So I do think, though, that there is a limit. I think that once we get into the 100-degree territory, the house is still cooler, but it's not comfortably cool. 90s and below, we don't even need the AC on. But if it's 105, it might be 85 inside, which is cooler, but still not fun. Anyway, long story short, I'm obsessed. If you live in a super hot or desert-like area, I highly, highly, highly recommend. I think it's called Cool Life, but I can post on socials what it is officially if you are interested. But also, let me tell you, boo, it costs some shmoney, okay? Do not think you're gonna walk up into Lowe's or Home Depot asking for this paint. We got it through a contractor company that came to our house. We do not have it like that. We basically took out a mortgage for this paint. But when I tell you right now that I'm sitting easy breezy, I just have a fan on, it was definitely worth it. But I just don't want y'all coming at my neck Daysha, this paint is expensive as hell, and be I let you know. Okay, So, for today's episode, I was recently talking to a friend about the podcast and having her come on as a guest. She's a mental health professional, and when we started talking about what friendship is and how we look at it, we had this communal realization that what makes a person a great friend, they're also the same qualities as a great romantic partner, but just minus the sex. And yes, there is a lot more nuance to this realization that I will go over in today's episode, but I wanted to throw that out there because of the way in which friendship has become a second tier, sometimes third tier relationship in our lives. Romantic relationships are often many people's North Star or their tier number one, and then for some, family is next, followed by friends. And I don't want to insinuate that there's something wrong with that order, but at the same time, it's interesting how friendship has migrated into this backseat kind of placeholder relationship in our modern world, when in the ancient world, and honestly up until the 20th century, the early 20th century, friendship was actually seen as one of the highest forms of love that two people could share. I've been reading this book called Platonic because you guys know I'm a book girly, and while I've always seen friendship as an important relationship, it's been so fascinating to read how revered a relationship friendship was for many Greek philosophers. So it was a really important relationship for many Greek philosophers like Plato, and that's actually where we get the word platonic from. So Plato viewed friendship as a love between two people that is so powerful that it transcends the physical. In Platonic, the author, Marissa Franco, writes that in the eyes of these philosophers, platonic love was not romantic love undergoing subtraction. It was a pure form of love, a love for one's soul. Can we just talk about how beautiful and poetic that is? A love for one's soul? Yes, Plato. Okay. I see why Plato was Platoing. Okay. But this love was deemed to be so potent that priests in the Middle Ages felt that this kind of love was dangerous because it could get in the way of our love for God. But, then at some point in the 17th century, they were like, actually, you know what? We can work with this. We can use friendship as a way to support our love for God, or, harass people into going into church. So again, this is not to say that romantic and familial relationships are not important or that friendship should be your number one relationship, but rather that there is much more value to nurturing our friendships than we might think, as a society and as a culture. And also that friendship can be so much more enriching to our lives than just seeing them as people that we hang out with until we get a romantic partner. And in my opinion, I think that those who have stronger friendships are much more likely to have better relationships with their romantic partner and their family members. So in our modern culture, when we fall in love romantically with a person, it is much more likely that we are being heavily swayed by outside factors like their physical appearance or their financials. And then if marriage enters the picture, we develop this somewhat problematic mindset that for better or worse, I have to take you as you are, no matter how much you might change and evolve throughout the marriage, which, real talk isn't the most exciting thing to hear. And then with family, we've also created this problematic rhetoric where we say blood before water, or that because we're blood, we're supposed to inherently love each other no matter what. But with friendship, it really is the only relationship that we have in life that we don't put these weird, uncomfortable parameters on. We say if we like you and we align and we have a good time and there's compatibility, then we'll entertain the relationship. But if at any point the person becomes misaligned to who we are or things just don't feel right, we walk away. And listen, I won't say it's the easiest relationship to disengage with. Friendship breakups can definitely be devastating. But out of all of the other relationships we hold, I find that it's much easier to draw that line in the sand if things aren't working out with a friend. We are less likely to force it the way that we will with a family member and significant others. But because of that, I actually think that's why it's much easier to fall in love with a friend. And when I say fall in love, I mean it in a purely platonic way. but it's so much easier to fall in love because you are actually free to fully discover who they are and really see them for that in a way that we don't always allow ourselves to do in romantic and familial relationships. In our familial relationships, we say, I have to love you because I only get one mom. Or in romantic partnerships, we say, I have to love you because you are my spouse. But we don't say we have to love our friends. We don't force ourselves to be bound to our friends in the same way. So instead of forcing a puzzle piece to fit, we kind of free ourselves up to find friends that actually really fit into who we are. And I know sometimes when we feel pressure and insecurity about making friends that we might force someone to fit. But again, once we come to that realization that they're not working, we still give ourselves greater permission to let that relationship go than we do with our family and our partners. And I think that's why I believe being a better friend can make you a better family member or a romantic partner because it can show you how to love beyond those made up obligations that we put on those relationships. And I say made up because, okay, so this might be harsh to hear, but again, this is Real Talk Friend Therapy, okay? But real talk, you are not obligated to love anyone. Not your partner, not your mama, not your children. No one. It is wonderful and amazing and fulfilling when we do love those people and there is a mutual love between us, but it is not an obligation. I am not obligated to love my mother. I choose to love my mother. And listen, I know what I said, okay? I know what I said, and I know that as the daughter of a Black woman, that can be a dicey thing to say, but it still doesn't change that it is the fact of life. I do not have to love her. I choose to love her. Yes, she gave me life and a roof over my head and resources to support myself, but none of that is what equals love. That is not at the core of what love is about. And, she also was not obligated to give birth to me or take care of me. She also chose to do that. There are plenty of people every day who give birth to kids they don't love or give a shit about, just like there are plenty of children that abandon their parents as soon as they are old enough to do so. Y'all, quick story time. So I was on TikTok and I saw this video. So there was this photograph of this woman and her 4 kids and a sign that said 4 kids for sale, like inquire inside. And the woman is so ashamed that she's not even looking at the camera. She's kind of just like looking away as somebody snaps a picture of these 4 kids under this sign. And so in the TikTok, the guy is going over the history of the picture and how basically this woman was a drunk and a gambler and her husband. Now, I'm realizing that I have a lot of judgment towards her and I want to be mindful of that because while I'm still not a fan of what she ended up doing, when you hear her story, you also have a little bit of empathy for the fact that it doesn't sound like she came from the greatest upbringing either. She was 20 years old and her husband was 40. So when you do the math, he definitely got with her when she was a minor and her husband basically abandoned the family. And so she was left with these 4 kids. And actually you come to find out that she was pregnant in the picture. So these 5 kids from this first relationship and he leaves her. And this was around the Depression era or a little bit afterwards. And so discovered that it was very common practice for people to sell their children, not give them up for adoption, literally sell them to people who were willing to buy them. And so this woman sold all her 5 kids. But the kicker is she sold them because her new relationship was I don't want them kids. And she went on to have 4 or 5 more kids with the new relationship. So again, all to say that there are plenty of people just because you are a mother, just because you gave birth does not mean that you are fit to be a parent, right? Giving birth and parenting are 2 very different things. And so buying things and doing things for people does not always equal love. For some people, these expressions can be love, but I think when you get to a certain age in life, you also know that some of these expressions can come from a sense of obligation, fear, or even manipulation. To me, love is active. Love is intimate. But most importantly, love is a choice. We get up and we choose to love the people that are in our lives. And I just feel the sooner we all realize that, I really do believe the sooner we can all know peace. Speaking of love, that's actually what the heart of this episode is devoted to today, specifically the triangular theory of love. If you've been riding with me since the Real Talk Love Therapy days, then this will be a familiar concept to y'all. But for everyone that's new, the triangular theory of love is a theory that I first learned about in college. I graduated with a minor in psychology, which, it was really supposed to be a major, but that's a story for another day. And one of the classes I took for my degree was in relationship science. So the triangular theory of love was coined by Robert Sternberg, and basically it puts forth the idea that there are three main support pillars, you could say, that comprise the full meaning of loving someone. And they are intimacy, passion, and commitment. Intimacy is the sense of closeness or connectedness we feel to a person. It's what allows us to hold someone in high regard or feel like we can be our authentic selves around them because we feel understood and seen by them. Passion is all about attraction and the physical. It's the rush we feel when we're around our partner or they touch us. Like for women, I would call it the coochie flutters, or, just for the average person, when you get butterflies in the stomach, basically it's what gets us aroused. But in a non-romantic sense, passion can also be seen as the sense of investment or drive that we feel to be in a relationship. And the last element is commitment, and commitment is essentially loyalty. So it's liking the person enough to where you feel a sense of obligation to the relationship. And like isn't always the best word. I think another way to put this is feeling bonded enough to where you feel that responsibility to the relationship. Because just because you feel a sense of responsibility to a relationship does not always mean that you're doing it because you like them. And so Sternberg believes that when all three of these elements are present in a relationship, then you have achieved what's called consummate love. And it's believed that when all three of those elements are present in a relationship and balanced, this is what will lead to unconditional love. However, there are still other types of love that we can have with people that don't have all three of these pillars. And while having all three of these is the goal, it's actually often debated within relationship science whether or not passion is something that can actually be sustained in a long-term romantic relationship just because of the physical and hormonal shifts that our bodies go through as we age. Now, as much as I'd like to talk about all 8 forms of love that Sternberg has identified through this theory, y'all, we ain't got time for that. So I'm just going to stick to the forms of love that I think are relevant for our discussion. But if you are interested in learning more, and I think it's really cool, I will definitely link out to his theory in the show notes. So if you believe that passion is not something that can be sustained in a long-term romantic relationship, then the next type of love that we can experience is called companionate love. This type of love is what many consider the most balanced and complete form of love because of this idea that passion fades. It is when we have a high sense of intimacy. So again, that sense of warmth, bondedness, and connectedness with a person, and then a strong commitment to the relationship. It is the type of love that researchers say long-lasting marriages are made of, and often the reason why older married couples will say that their partner has become their best friend, because they've literally become their companion. Or people will say that you should marry someone who feels like your best friend because, looks fade, and you should consider the deeper type of person that they are because that's what's going to be left once the passion and the looks fade. It is a love that is very much in line with what Plato was talking about when he said that friendships are based off of love that we have for one's soul. And while Sternberg's theory is typically used when talking about romantic relationships, I think that companionate love is definitely the type of love that Ring 1 friends are made of. And if you're new to the podcast and have no idea what I mean by Ring 1, please go check out episode 3. I believe it's called What is Friendship, to get that background. But when we think about the friendship rings framework, where Ring 1 friends represent our best friends, Ring 2 friends represent our close friends, and Ring 3 friends represent our good friends or our activity friends, we can look at Sternberg's types of love in this way, where companionate love, a love that is high in intimacy and commitment, is what we feel for Ring 1 friends and even some Ring 2 friends who might have migrated down the rings due to factors like proximity or your lack of frequency in seeing them all the time. But then the next form of love, which is actually called liking, is what we have for ring 2 and ring 3 friends, where we experience a high level of intimacy, but we don't feel a strong sense of commitment or passion. Again, we really like these people and enjoy the time that we spend with them, but for a ring 2 friend, we might be a little upset if the friend ended it, but for a ring 3 friend, it definitely wouldn't be the end of the world because of that low sense of commitment to the relationship. And then the last form of love that we'll be talking about today from Sternberg's list is called empty love. Empty love is when we're committed to a relationship, but that's it. And it likely occurs when passion and intimacy have faded and can indicate that a relationship is either on its last leg or that a breakup is imminent. But it can also appear at the start of a new relationship where you're just starting to get to know someone. A person intrigues you enough to want to commit to figuring them out more, but you still don't have any intimacy with them. This is a type of love that we would have with our ring 3 friends or people that we're on friendly terms with. I feel like it's what we experience also with our coworkers or classmates or even that barista that we get our morning coffee from that we have a lot of proximity and frequency with. We acknowledge them, we notice when they're missing, but there's not much to the relationship outside of us constantly being in the same place at the same time. So I wanted to talk about Sternberg's theory today, just to remind people that there's so much more nuance to our understanding of love than what the English language reflects, as well as to put more of a spotlight back on how falling in love does not have to be reserved for romance. You can fall in love with a friend in a platonic way, and I actually think it should be more normalized. So I remember as a teen, I really struggled with not having a boyfriend in high school. It was the missing puzzle piece for me after I'd lost a ton of weight. So when I lost the weight and boys just weren't throwing themselves at me, it really affected me. And it's funny because even though I knew how sad I was, I didn't realize that other people around me could see that sadness too. So on Valentine's Day one year, my mom was dropping me off to go back to my boarding school. Yes, I went to boarding school. More on that that's a video for another day. But before I got out of the car, she gave me this jewelry box. And inside the box was a necklace that came with this book, and it was called an open heart necklace. And my mom was basically like, I hope you know that your soulmate does not have to be limited to a boyfriend or like a romantic partner. A soulmate can also be your best friend, like Dee, who was this girl that I went to high school with, and she was my best friend at the time, and she still is. Love you, Dee. And so at the time, while I appreciated the gesture, there was also a part of me that was just like, oh, this is so cringe. Like, this is the 9th place trophy. It just felt like a consolation prize for like saying that like I'm gonna be a spinster. And I loved what she was trying to say, but I also felt like a loser for that to be what my soulmate situation was gonna be. And it wasn't until I got older and finally got into a relationship and started dating that I came to really value what my mom was trying to tell me that day. You know, if your soulmate is your romantic partner, that's great. Love that for you. But I also believe that it's just as valuable to think of your friends as potential soulmates as well. And honestly, since starting this podcast, it's made me think about, like, how can I fall in love with my best friends more? Like, I can't tell you how many times me and my friends, we talk about how now I am in a happy relationship, but, you know, even with that relationship, there are trials and tribulations. And I always say, I'm like, if this relationship don't work out, like, we need to just open a mommune, we raise our kids together. And even if, you know, like, we end up finding our life partner or whatever, we're still going to live in the mommune. And, you know, like, the life partner just kind of comes and goes, but like, we're going to be each other's rock. You know, sometimes I'm even like, even though I'm in this relationship now, I still might even do that. So, because living with the one that you love is not for the weak. Okay. Like, I love my boyfriend to death, but living together, it's just a whole nother level to your relationship. And like I said, it is not for the weak. I'm not against love. You know, if you and your partner can cohabitate in a healthy, wonderful, beautiful manner, again, love that. for you. But realistically speaking, like, that shit's rough. It's hard. It's not easy. And so I love this mommune the more I talk about it. It's great. Anywho, another part in Platonic that I loved is how Franco breaks down how common it was for men to be affectionate with their guy pals in the 1800s, because the notion of homosexuality was so forbidden that it wasn't even considered to be a subtext to the affection that they had with each other. And, I actually think that's a really healthy way to look at it. And when I say healthy, I am not trying to condone homophobia. But I find that for guys in particular, the ability to show love to your other male friends in our modern world makes guys so uncomfortable because they think it makes them look gay. And I feel like this is more of like a Gen X, elder millennial thing. I find that like for Gen Z and maybe Gen Alpha, from what I'm hearing, that the boys are gonna be all right, that they love showing affection to each other. So I love it. I hope this comes back in style, because let me tell you, guys in the 1800s were sharing beds together and nursing each other back to health and calling each other their beloved in letters. Like, what? It was, and not saying no homo afterwards either. I mean, it was a really beautiful time for male friendship. Not great for much else, but, fabulous for male friendship. In any case, I say all this to say that we should not be afraid to fall in love with our friends. Fall in love with your friends. That is the lesson of today's episode. And I actually have a new friend that I've been chatting up virtually who told me that they love to date their friends, but again, in a platonic way. Like, they like to take them out and buy them meals and just spoil them. And I'm 110% here for it. I do not think that we should only be looking to our romantic partners to get all of our needs met. And in fact, I think our romantic relationships and even our relationships with our family would thrive so much more if we didn't put so many obligations on our partners or our family members like that. Like, I love talking to my boyfriend, and I definitely see him as one of my best friends, but he is also not the person that I want to go to for everything. He's terrible with words. Again, love him with all my heart, and I can see his side eye at me saying this, but he rarely says the thing that I want to hear when I'm mad or in my feels. But do you know who does know exactly what I need to hear? Becky fucking Harris does. And so that's who I talk to, instead of forcing him to become something that he's not. And I know we like to say, well, if they loved me, they would. No, nope, incorrect, false. Now, if he wants to improve on that himself, let me tell you, love that for him. More power to him, and I'll obviously support him. But it's honestly way more powerful and effective to play to people's strengths than to set them up to fail you. And I'll give you an example that has to do with me too. So I am not the friend. How do I say this? Like, I think very pragmatically. I get it from my mom. And so I am not the friend. I am not going to hype up you doing some stupid shit. I'm just not. I will do my best not to burst your bubble, but if you want to do something that sounds stupid, I'm just going to look at you or I'm going to have questions. And so then I will kill the hype. And I am aware of this, but it's also like that is just how I am. I can't change that about myself, but I will tell people, I'm like, look, I don't think I was the person to share your desire to do this thing with. I love you and I want you to do what you feel like you need to do. But like, if I think it's stupid, I can't hide that. Or I shouldn't say I think it's stupid. If I'm not behind it, if I can't support it, I'm not going to lie to you about that. And so I make that very clear with people that it's like, I can't be that person. It's not within me. And the funny thing is my mom is the same way. And I be getting mad at her, realizing that I'm like, oh no, she is not the person that I go to for that. I think the greatest lesson I've learned in that regard is that there are facts and there are feelings. And it's up to us to untangle what actually happened from what we interpreted that to mean. Just because someone didn't invite me to a party does not mean that they don't like me. Now, can I be hurt by that action? Of course. But it does not serve me to go and tell people that so-and-so don't like me because they didn't invite me to the party, as much as saying so-and-so didn't invite me and that made me feel X. The second statement is upfront with the real issue at hand, which is that you're hurt by the action. The first statement is an assumption. And as my mama loves to tell me, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me, okay? All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. As always, hit me up on social media for any thoughts, feelings, or revelations that you were having about this episode. Or better yet, you can join me in our free exclusive Facebook group. The link to that is in the show notes, along with the link to our Patreon. If you want access to bonus content, private convos, and additional perks, our Patreon is where all of that lives. I hope you enjoy your start to Pride Month. Yes. And I'll catch you guys next session. I'm out, besties. Loving Real Talk Friend Therapy? Of course you are. So don't forget to show us some love with a 5-star review wherever you are listening, and to join our Patreon to unlock bonus recordings, videos, private chats, and more.